Welcome to MindWise Audio and Video Podcast, exploring holistic perspectives in emotional and mental health, psychology, neuroscience, spirituality, and wellness. I am your host, Dr. Ron Parks, a writer, teacher, and physician. Today's guest is Eric Stoller, is a wellness media entrepreneur and motivational strategist known as the Brand Whisperer in the wellness space. As founder of Patient Zero and Champion Media, he bridges longevity, mindset, and storytelling to inspire transformation and healing for people, brands, and those in the wellness, longevity, and human performance movement. Eric, maybe you could say a few words about yourself and your personal journey and elaborate on your current work and advocacy. And also I have a few questions. Go ahead, Eric.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ron. I appreciate that intro. And I have been on a journey. Part of my brand is called Man on a Mission. And we just did our first Man on a Mission, the science and business of wellness. And that really germinated from my own experiences of as you know, going through life as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a father, as a husband, and just like many people, dealing with life throws at us. And nobody gave us a handbook in many cases. So for me early on, coming from a family of educators, parents that were teachers, growing up in New York, I was always around education. And in fact, I wanted to go into the Marines, and my mother's like, you better finish your college. You're not. And like, what is this, kid from Brooklyn thinking he's doing in the Marines? So, my good Jewish mother, of course, said, no, finish and get your college degree. And so then I embarked on my motivation. I moved to California, and then by chance was introduced to Brian Tracy. And I spent decades promoting his seminars all over the United States. And, that gave me the inspiration to really just continually, help people. I went on to start Les Brown Speaking Institute. We enrolled thousands of people and helped them elevate them because they all wanted to be like Les and Brian. And I didn't realize that I was standing at the top of the food chain with these guys, and everybody was trying to get there. Now, I laugh because just today I was in my storage, and I was with a friend of mine who's about 25 years younger than me. And I said, look, you see this? This is a list of all the companies in South Florida that we actually visited and spoke to their sales departments for an event we did with Brian in 1998. There must have been 600 companies. Well, there is no social media then. The social media was exactly that. You showed up, you show yourself and you go. And nothing's really changed. And in the world of wellness, what happened, I just, started getting treated by one of my doctors I was one of the tenants in the same building. And I was fascinated by regenerative medicine. I was fascinated by the alternative treatments he was doing. I had a knee probably put ozone in, and it helped. But my affiliation in the last 8 years from COVID with people like Top Doctor Magazine and Boston BioLife, and many of the people that have really been in that regenerative and anti-aging market, really was kind of the real next level kind of kick for me, as in the fact of, I was able to utilize peptides and lose 100 pounds. I was introduced to stem cells, and now I just stem cell treatment. I can't believe the energy and what I look like. And now here in Florida, it's now becoming known. I've had an opportunity to work with all of the modalities, the hyperbarics, the red lights, and I use them every single day. And I see myself in the market right now as a business professional, working with practices is like my doctor that I've helped market, to help them become better healers, not to be stuck on, I gotta make this much on a transaction to pay the bills. And that's what happens. You become between medical expert and I gotta make sure I got patients coming in at the same time. And on the flip side, there is the patient. There is that sophisticated patient that's been doing it forever. And then there's the neophyte, the person that's hearing all the talk, the stem cells, the peptides, this peptide, that peptide. Who knows? And the other side is all of the red light, the hyperbaric, the PMF. I feel fortunate being in the conference business that I've access to over 1,000 vendors that I've interacted with. So, and a lot of their equipment we use. And so when you're thinking about where do you go as Eric Stoller, man on a mission, patient zero, my objective is not only to be a guy that's educating, but I'm out in front. In fact, I'm getting my first e-boot treatment tomorrow and really letting people know that these things aren't scary. That, if you want to make major change in your life, sometimes you got to do things, as Brian Tracy likes to say, puts you out of your comfort zone. And that's what I'm seeing here, Dr. Ron, that here in South Florida, that there's such a push on this longevity movement. Everybody is in this longevity space. And all of a sudden they got like super crowded. Everybody's a biohacker. To me, here's what I say to people. You got to do what works for you. And I know I don't have
Exactly.
a journey that's perfect. It's not a straight line. But when I take my shirt off, and I hate to say it, my wife gets jealous because she's like, "Oh, look at you. You're an old man. You're this." I'm like, "I'm in the best shape of my life." And you know what? I didn't look this good since I was 19. So you're always walking around with your shirt off. I go, "Why?" I said, "Because I can't even believe it." And that's part of it. And the other side is, even though you do that, I really work with people because of being in the motivational seminar business to get there. What was the goal that got you there? And I will share with you later in your show what the goal that got me there, because I totally believe, as a person in that patient space, sharing to you as a doctor, or doctors are saying, why are my patients staying on that anti-aging, the peptide? Why aren't they doing this? Because they haven't figured out what mentally motivates them past the weight loss, because they got bored. Go, oh yeah, versus this is a change in my lifestyle to live my best life going forward. And that's my message, because for me, heart attack at 46, crashed my car into a telephone pole 15 feet, 50 feet from my house after coming from a bar. And I just say that because those were just quick fixes, when all it was is really saying, hey, I just got to take better control of myself. So that's our message. That's my message, a health, wealth, and self message, because it is an ongoing, never ending do it to yourself project. And I fully believe that. And I'm trying to lead by example, not by saying, yeah, I heard this on the radio. No, I'm the guy that actually did it. Like tomorrow, I'll let you know how an e-boot treatment is. I don't know if you've done it. I've never done it, and going to do one tomorrow. They can say filter your blood out, put it back in, something like that.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes.
When this is years ago, when I was in Miami, we were probably on the vanguard of a lot of the longevity movement, and some of these seem to really have answers. Well, the truth is, I've outlived all of them. Oh,
Yeah, it's not funny.
I have to share my secrets. But anyway,
Yeah, I
but
love it.
I love a lot of things and what you're doing. And I like the word mindset. In a recent piece I wrote, I talk about the whole history of that, and going back to one of the great motivational speakers, Zig Ziglar, who I mentioned the Oracle. He sort of brought in popularity the expression stinking thinking. But then I took that and went through how that's developed in psychology. And basically, it's about how people get stuck in the wrong mindset, or what's called schemas or schematas, or whatever you want to call it. So it's a whole interesting thing. It's nothing new. I mean, certainly the Buddhists, the yogis talked about it centuries ago, about how you can get frozen in certain mind ideas and so on. So I've been very interested in that. And I don't want to get started on that, Eric. Right?
Okay.
But anyway, so I'm very interested in the mindset, because that's the hardest thing to get around in motivating people, is to loosen them up. And, today we're trying all kinds of things, some of the hallucinogenic therapies, and, just to try to break people free of that a little bit. Just fascinating. Fascinated by it all. So, the other thing you mentioned, and I want you to may say something about storytelling, because the whole thing about mindset or for people being caught in a fixed and flexible mind is they're caught in their own story. And sometimes the only way you can relate is come up with a narrative or a story that kind of fits in with the way they're at least where they're stuck, and then move that story, get it changed some. And pretty effective unless you're dealing with a severe psychopath or narcissistic personality disorder. Then it still can work, but it'll be uphill battle. So
Sure.
anyway, so is that the sense you're talking about storytelling, Eric, in your work?
Well, I'm sorry.
No, when you mention storytelling, it's a growth engine. Are you talking about people that are doing presentations, or you talking about this whole medical field called narrative medicine?
I was really looking towards more how it relates to you as an individual of sharing and telling your story. Les Brown likes to say you can't see the picture in the frame. So part of the reframing of somebody's, story.
Yeah,
And I just had this, you talk about it, and I was actually recently we had a big stem cell event, and then we had a psilocybin ceremony afterwards. And I learned a lot about myself. And that was, again, another one of those things of the combination of the two, just like you were talking about, was very powerful. And I realized, just a lot of things that, that came about of that, because what the shaman or the leader was like, he goes, look, he goes, him personally had issues with alcohol. He went to rehab multiple times, but then he realized it wasn't changing those old behaviors. You could say I stopped drinking, but I still was an alcoholic because I wasn't able to change those patterns. The same thing. I lost weight. He goes, but do you still think like a person that weighs 100 pounds more? Right? What are the mannerisms you think? So part of what even the ceremony was to eliminate some of those things so you're on clear path. Now, eliminate that from the picture. One of the things I like to do, and that's what I've done, is say, okay, this is what my story is right now. But what is that story? Who am I? Who is that new person? And so if your people are uplifting their story and they're buying into it and they're owning what it is versus, yeah, I'm kind of believe it, but I don't. And my story is one that when you see it from beginning to end, and always a work in progress, because I said, success is a journey. It's not a destination. And any really accomplishment starts, it takes one step at a time. So when I started on a journey, to get back my health, I was producing large seminars. I had an 8,000 square foot office. I had a video production studio, a podcast studio, a biohacking center, a medical clinic. I'm doing events with other people that are doing unbelievable. But Eric, what was the problem? It was me. Because Eric, none of that filled me up. All that was tough. And so I share that with you, Doc, because people get caught up. I live in South Florida. Everybody's got a BMW, a Lamborghini. I'm sitting in a Mercedes, I can't even find a less car. But yeah, I can get a Ford truck, do the same. So people get into status and you see it all the time. And then you find at the end of the day, what do we have? And I'll just share this. I had a couple of business adventures going on. This is last year, and they both blew up at the same time, at the same table, immediately at the same time. 10 minutes later, I get a call from one of my closest friends that his mother had a massive stroke and he's in the hospital with her. And I don't think she's going to make it because she's laying on a gurney with her eyes open, twitching. She was bad. She was basically brain dead. In that moment, you know what it told me? All that other stuff was meaningless. It was stuff. It was an idea of people trying to push money through for what they want to accomplish. So my 360 to people has really been, what makes you happy? And so for me, I really made the point of I was fearful of gaining the weight back. So what I did was I got back when I was a kid, I sang in chorus and me and one other kid were the only two kids who can sing. So we had music through the years, so I was like Elvis Presley and Frankie Lyman and Al Jolson. I come from a family of performers. So as I got older, I really didn't perform, but I always wanted to perform. So I started taking vocal lessons. So my friend said, "Hey, you sing these covers good." And I got on stage with him, and I would get on stage and intro the bands. And then I went to New York, and me and one of my business associates ran into a gentleman I know from Brooklyn. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, he wrote a song called "Man on a Mission" and "Ready to Rock." I performed "Man on a Mission" live in Times Square in front of thousands of people in September. We turned it into a music video, and now it's part of not only what we're doing with our overall brand, but I created a whole entire program called Ready to Rock, which is kind of really based on getting ready, knowing your plan, and "Man on a Mission," which is, I'm a man on a mission. This is the words of the song, with a vision in mind. I'm a man on a mission with one goal in mind. I'm going to tell my story to the world. I'm going to tell my story to the world. Now, when you see my video, doctor, I'll send it to you. You'll be like, I was with a bunch of doctors at an aesthetic show. And I said, I did this, for the seminars, because my daughter's like, "Dad, what's going on?" And she's like, "No, no, no. You want to be a rock and roll singer. I can see it." Because you get that feeling you're on stage. So what did that do for me to bring this to a head? The amount of confidence I've given over 10,000 talks on stage. But uh, the fact of the matter is that me getting up there and singing a song on stage and performing something that I was out of my comfort zone, when done with that, seeing it live on a video and looking back, it's like one of them that's locked it in. So that's what I want to help people do, is lock it in. Because where do I go? Oh, I'm with my coach. I'm getting to the next event. I'm doing this. I'm mindful of my health because I have a central purpose. Of course, I have my business, but that's a passion. So I had a woman that was 200 pounds overweight in my audience the other day. And I said, "What's your big goal?" She goes, "My goal is to jump out of an airplane." I go, "There you go." So that's what we're looking for, things that move the needle, not like, "Well, when I lose this weight, I'm going to buy a dress size that's for it." Great. What's going to really excite you? What's going to scare the crap out of you that you're willing to burn the boats behind you and do whatever you need to do? And I think when people hear that, by any chance, what is it that, we need to do on a day-to-day basis so we're in control of our health, you know?
Yeah, you've done some amazing work and some amazing things. And, we could talk all day about different kind of things that have influenced this. It reminded me, you're talking about voice. And I bet this one's not one you've heard of, Eric, in the uh, kind of alternative world or medicine, all those things. But years ago, there was something called Tomatis movement. And who was Tomatis? He was an ENT doctor whose father was the most famous opera singer in France. And suddenly he started seeing all these opera singers that had lost their voice. So he started working with them with voice, and he realized that there was a secret in all that. And he ended up with about 300 centers around France, very well known for his work, because they were beginning to see that it helped people with depression, with ADHD, and all kinds of things. And so they opened a center out in Arizona. Like usual back in those days, I picked up and went out there. And it was great, but the only, is using voice and, and I sort of had anxiety about lecturing, being on stage after some traumatic stuff I've had, but it completely changed me, then they couldn't shut me up. But the thing though I realized about all his work and teaching was it was like yoga. You had to do his stuff every day, reading out loud. He had a whole thing about that. But but
Sure.
one day I'll tell you about it. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm sorry, the second day of our event, we had a healing house party where we had over 40 people come, where we did all the modalities. We had healers, Reiki, massage, sound frequency healing to kind of bring people into, kind of a more relaxed environment. It was really a lot of fun. We're doing the next one in April. So if you're out here, you can come and lecture and hang out with us. We got $3 million house we did it at. And then we have one in March we're doing at like a $10 million house. So people like that. It's a little gimmicky, but it works, you know? I don't want to say gimmicky. It's a different environment. Instead of being in a clinical environment, it's more relaxed environment. And don't worry, we're not doing surgery on site there. No, that's not good. It's just
Yeah.
more of a healing and relaxing experience for people.
Yeah, Eric, I just wanted to make this, a short video just to introduce you to me and so the people I interface with would get to know you and I think
Yeah.
it's amazing. Just all the elements. It sort of is a composite of a lot of things that I've explored and done through the years and so on. So now I'm mostly, at my age, mostly teaching and doing what I call collaborating. I don't,
Yes.
I find that that's a world beyond psychotherapy. Or once I had a teacher, he was a most wonderful man. He was like a father. He was a training psychoanalyst that had retired, but he wanted to keep on. So I worked with him, and he taught me. And on the last day, he looked at me and he said, "Last pearl," he said, "never give anybody any advice." And so I walked out of there, and it took me 20 years to figure out his little paradox there. But it was about, collaborating with people. You it's the way you get to where people are. So, whenever I approach and a lot of the students I teach now, or mid-level psychiatric nurse practitioners, PAs, or some of the business, I collaborate with them. Thank you, Eric, for being here. I appreciate your interest. Please share with others. Thanks to Sean Parks, editor and project manager, for his valuable contribution. All content is created and published for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical services or guidance. Always consult a healthcare provider for care related to medical or mental health conditions. This communication does not provide medical diagnosis, recommendation, treatment, or endorsements. Thank you. For inquiries, go to parksmd.com. And for articles relevant to our discussion today, see my recent articles on the website Lifestyle Psychiatry, A New Paradigm, and Stinking Thinking, Revealed and Getting Unstuck. Thank you.